I suppose that many of you know how to use the past tense in Czech, but there is some feature of the past tense that you might not know. In this video, I'll show you how the native Czechs use the past tense. Ahoj! Vítejte na mém kanále Czech by Zuzka, kde vám pomocí angličtiny vysvětluju českou gramatiku. Before I talk about this mysterious feature that the Czech natives use when they use the past tense, I will review very briefly how to make the traditional past tense. Let's take the verb myslet, to think, because it's quite common to use it. We take away the last letter and then we add the endings L, la, li or li with Y. Of course, we should also not forget the neuter form with lo and la in here. So let's write these forms here. Myslel or myslela, depends who's speaking, if it's a man or a woman. This is the same, myslel, and this is the same. On myslel, ona myslela, my mysleli or mysleli with Y. This is the singular form and this is the plural form. And I mixed both the masculine and the feminine forms. There is one thing missing, of course. We also need the auxiliary verb to be. We use it with ja, ty, my and vy, not the third person. Myslel jsem or myslela jsem, myslel si, myslela si. Not here. Mysleli jsme, mysleli jste. Of course, we could also have the singular form like vy jste myslela, vy jste myslel if we are referring to one person and treating them formally. And oni mysleli, there's nothing. So this is a very brief revision about how to make the past tense. If you are a beginner and this is something that you are not very comfortable with yet, you can also download my worksheet, which has everything. I created it just a few days ago. I spent a lot of hours working on this worksheet. Of course, we use these forms when we speak, when we write. But there is this feature of contracting the forms, using shorter forms for specific pronouns. Only for some persons. It concerns ja, ty, and my. These are very frequent pronouns. Sometimes when we speak or write informally in colloquial Czech, we don't say myslela jsem. We can say já myslel. We just leave out the auxiliary verb, but then if we just left it out, it would be like the third person, right? So we have to make up for it by adding já. Já myslel, já myslela. This is something that you can hear. Já myslela, že to není pravda. I thought it was not true. And what can we do here? Now we do the same thing right here with the pronoun my. We say my, mysleli. We leave out the auxiliary verb and we add the pronoun. And ty also has a change, an interesting change, but it's not the same. We contract these forms, isi, we only use s from it and then we use it together with the verb, that's one option. Or we add it to any other word that appears at the beginning of the sentence. So what would happen here if we have only these two words in the sentence? We would say myslels. And we don't have to say ty because the s tells us it refers to this particular person. And we can also mention ty for emphasis. In that case, ty would be at the beginning of the sentence and the s would go right here. This myslel. That's interesting, right? Myslels, like myslels to vážně? Were you serious? Did you think this for real? Or ty jsi to myslel vážně? Look at this for a few seconds. If you want to pause this and think about what I wrote. And now I will show you more examples with these particular pronouns. I almost forgot to mention the feminine version. When we refer to a woman, it would be myslelas or ty jsi myslela. Let's start with the pronoun já. I wrote 5 sentences that use these informal colloquial forms that are short. They're not using the auxiliary verb. But remember, we do have to mention the pronoun here. For example, já na to zapomněla. I forgot about it. Já na to zapomněla. There's no jsem. You know that it's past tense from the ending here, and you know it refers to I because of this pronoun right here. Já tě neviděl. I didn't see you. Promiň, já tě neviděl. Sorry, I didn't see you. The same thing. Pronoun is here, the ending is here. Já tě neviděl. Já včera pekla kuře. I roasted a chicken yesterday. Já pekla. Já včera pekla kuře. Instead of já jsem včera pekla kuře. Já se strašně bál. I was so afraid. Já se strašně bál. It also concerns the reflexive verbs. And the rule is the same. We just leave out jsem. Já jsem se strašně bál. That's the proper way, but many people would leave out jsem. Já se strašně bál. You might have noticed that já is always at the beginning. Yes, we should naturally start by this pronoun. However, we could have a few words at the beginning if they don't have any meaning, like these filler words that are typical for informal Czech, such as no or tak. So, for example, this sentence doesn't start with já, but we start by no tak. No tak já na tebe celý den čekala a ty jsi nepřišel. I was waiting for you the whole day and you didn't come. Ty jsi nepřišel. Also abbreviated. We will see that in a few seconds. No tak doesn't carry any meaning. They're just words that we add and we can leave them out. Já na tebe celý den čekala. Let's do a quick exercise. I'm going to read this sentence and then you are going to include the auxiliary verb. And then I will wait a few seconds and then I will reveal how it will be in the proper Czech. Very easy. Já na to zapomněla. Já jsem na to zapomněla. Já tě neviděl. Já jsem tě neviděl. Já včera pekla kuře. Já jsem včera pekla kuře. Já se strašně bál. Já jsem se strašně bál. No tak já na tebe celý den čekala a ty jsi nepřišel. Let's just focus on this part. Já jsem na tebe celý den čekala. Easy. Right after já. Now you might be thinking, when can I use this? First of all, I'm not telling you gotta use this. I want you to be aware of this because when you hear Czech people speak, you will probably hear this sooner or later and then you might be wondering, where is the auxiliary verb? Why isn't it the way I studied the past tense? Also, we don't use this all the time when we speak. This is when you react to something because in Czech, when you use the pronoun, it's for emphasis. So it's usually a reaction to something that someone else said. Someone tells you, oh, so did you bring the papers? Já na to zapomněla. You don't come into the office and say, já na to zapomněla, unless it's clear what you're talking about. Or someone told you what they made for dinner and you say, oh, já včera pekla kuře. Let's see the examples with ty, my favorite. I told you that this pronoun is a little bit different. We don't leave out the auxiliary verb to be. We contract the form. So we take the verb si and we just use s from it and we add it to the first word of the sentence. That's why you end up with very interesting combinations. Let's take a look at them. For example, ty jsi to věděl. Ty jsi to věděl. Ty jsi to věděl. We added the s from this auxiliary verb right here. And this means you knew it. Ty jsi to věděl. It's much more common to hear this rather than write it. Or these contracted forms are also used in poems when you need to use one syllable less. This instead of ty jsi. Nechtěl jsi na mě počkat. So this little s here comes from jsi. Nechtěl jsi na mě počkat. You didn't want to wait for me. Nechtěl jsi na mě počkat. That's funny. Nechtěl jsi. Viděl jsi to? Did you see that? Or like in English, you see that? Viděl jsi to. Viděl jsi to instead of viděl jsi to. Co jsi říkal? You add the s to the first word of the sentence or of the clause. So, co jsi říkal? Proč jsi nepřišel? Proč jsi nepřišel? Why didn't you come? Like I said, we don't usually write it. We use it in spoken form. I use these forms all the time. When I speak to my family and friends, I would probably not say viděla si to, viděl si to. I would more likely say viděl jsi to, viděla jsi to. I give you examples only with the verbs that are not reflexive. When it comes to the verbs that have se and si as a part of them, you might remember, you might know that these verbs for this particular pronoun in the past tense are already contracted. We use ses and sis, like for example, yeah, ty sis na mě vzpomněl, ty sis na mě vzpomněl. You remembered me. These forms are already contracted, so there is no need, and there is also no way to really contract them. So just leave those be as they are. By the way, if you want to practice colloquial Czech in context, I invite you to check my special course, When Czech Stories Are Never Better, 1 and 2. There are 2 parts, and these stories are really fun. Chtěla podpatky, tak trp. You will learn a lot from them. I put a 30% discount on them until next week. Let's do the same exercise here as well. I will read these sentences, give you a second or two, and then you will tell me how it is with this proper form. Ty jsi to věděl. Ty jsi to věděl. Super. Nechtěl jsi na mě počkat. Nechtěl jsi na mě počkat. Viděl jsi to? Viděl jsi to? Co jsi říkal? Co jsi říkal? Proč jsi nepřišel? Proč jsi nepřišel? Let's see how we use the pronoun my. It's the same like já. You just leave out the auxiliary verb jsme and you have to mention the pronoun. My to nechtěli dělat. Instead of my jsme to nechtěli dělat. We didn't want to do it. My mysleli, že nepřijdeš. We thought you were not coming. My mysleli. My se ztratili. We got lost. My se ztratili. You can see that this also includes the reflexive verbs with si and se. Just like in the case of já. My tomu vůbec nerozuměli. We didn't understand it at all. My nerozuměli. Let's do the same exercise. I will read the sentence and you complete it with jsme in the right place. My to nechtěli dělat. My jsme to nechtěli dělat. My mysleli, že nepřijdeš. My jsme mysleli, že nepřijdeš. My se ztratili. My jsme se ztratili. My tomu vůbec nerozuměli. My jsme tomu vůbec nerozuměli. Super. So remember, you're not obligated to use these forms, but you are probably going to hear them when you listen to Czech speak around you or when you watch Czech movies. Specifically, the ty person is very common and you can use it anytime. You would hear it very often in an informal context. Now let me show you one more thing that we can do with the verbs in past, and this happens in the colloquial language. You must have noticed that there are these annoying endings in some of the verbs. There are 2 consonants at the end, like mohl. Who wants to pronounce that, right? Mohl. So when you end up with these forms that are typical for the singular form, masculine, because there is no other vowel at the end, the natives, including me, sometimes leave out the last letter, which is the L. Mohl is pronounced as moch. Moch. We could even write it like this, but it's not very common to write it unless we read a book that has a direct speech that uses this feature and they want to emphasize the informal language. So it could be written like this or with an apostrophe. Moch. Moch si, moch sem. You could use these short forms only for the masculine. I would say mohla sem. But if I speak to a man, I would say mohl si to udělat. You could have done it. Mohl si to udělat. Pomohl, pomoh, pomoh. Tady ten pán mi pomohl. This man over here helped me. Četl, the same thing. We can leave out the last letter. Čet. We have čet, and again we can write it with this apostrophe. Imagine you want to ask a friend, did you read this? You could ask in a proper way. You could ask, četl si to? Did you read this? That's the proper form. The other option that you have is what we saw before. You use this S, you put it at the end. It would be četlsto. But we can also leave out the L. I would be really informal. Četsto. And then again we can mark it like this. Četsto. Ty to čet? So there are so many ways to ask. Did you read this? Or a verb such as vlezl, which is to climb. So we can say vles. It also means to get in. Very informal verb. And ukradl, stole, ukrad. Někdo mi ukrad peněženku. Someone stole my wallet. Někdo mi ukrad peněženku. And again, you don't have to use these forms, but tune your ears. Maybe you will hear these forms when you listen to people speak. And to conclude this topic, let's do a quick exercise. See these sentences in past tense. They're written in the proper forms, and your task will be to use the contracted forms. Pause the video, work on it, and I will reveal the correct answers right after. Okay, ready? The first sentence. Já jsem byla v pondělí doma. This means I was at home on Monday. And you would say já byla v pondělí doma. We just get rid of the word jsem. Já byla v pondělí doma. Kde jsi byl? Where were you? So si becomes contracted and it gets stuck to the first word, which leaves us with kdes byl? Where were you? Číslo 3. Nic jsem neřekl. I didn't say anything. We have more options. We can say já nic neřekl. Já nic neřekl. Or you can also get rid of the L at the end of the word. Já nic neřekl. Číslo 4. Jak jsi to věděla? How did you know it? Jak jsi to věděla? Jak jsi to věděla? We could even go an extra mile and make it very, very informal. Ty jsi to věděla jak? And you know it how? It's also possible. Ty jsi to věděla jak? Číslo 5. Nemohli jsme se domluvit. We couldn't come to an agreement. My se nemohli domluvit. We have to shuffle the words around. My se nemohli domluvit. A číslo 6. Prolezl jsem všechny kouty. I searched in every corner. Literally, I climbed everywhere in order to find something. You can say either já prolezl všechny kouty or já prolez všechny kouty. I hope this was fun for you. I enjoyed making this lesson because I think it's important for people who live in the Czech Republic or are in contact with the Czech culture or Czech movies, because it will help them, it will help you to understand us better. Once again, if you would like to practice making the past tense, the basics, also the irregular verbs, how to use the short forms and ses and sis, etc., including this piece of information from the video, you will find it all in this awesome worksheet. No a já už řekla všechno, I said everything, a budu se těšit za týden. Ahoj!